What's up guys, and welcome back to TechPlant. This video is as promised, and this is the secret newly developed way to make your Pilea Peperomioides to make babies. Let's check it out. If you watch my most recent video about the Pilea Peperomioides, you'll notice that this looks pretty similar to that, and that is just sad looking Pileas that have grown very tall. In a lot of comments I get questions about tall Pileas that are kind of losing leaves around the base, so here's going to be kind of the go-to key on how to one, get a ton of babies from that, and two, how to kind of start it over again and get a nice plant. In the last experiment, I took a bunch of these cuttings and I put them in water, but I did not like how they did in water. I think they had a large potential to rot, and they just didn't seem to do so well. So I'm going to try sphagnum moss because it is my go-to for propagating. I think it works really well, and if you really wanted to and you didn't have sphagnum moss, you could probably do perlite in the same method. So again, just like the last experiment, I just cut them up into different pieces, different types, some with a lot of leaves, some with not a lot of leaves, just to see which ones perform better. I took the tops and I just put them in some sphagnum moss because it always works. Whenever I propagate the tops of plants in the sphagnum moss, they always root, and then you can plant them and get a whole new plant. Alright, so 15 days have passed since I put this in the sphagnum moss. Many people always ask, how wet do I keep the sphagnum moss? In this case, I kept it pretty darn wet. I did not want this stuff to dry out because it was kind of just lightly pressed against it. So I kept it pretty darn wet because it had a lot of area for air to kind of get in so things could breathe. Looking closer though at this, you can see that the actual just stick with no leaves already has a ton of babies poking out of it, and I believe this is probably the best way to keep doing things, but let's keep looking. You can see a lot of the other ones with the leaves are also producing quite a few roots, and they have little babies coming out as well, but so far none can compete with the just straight up stick cutting with no leaves. About another 15 days has gone by again, and you can see the stick one is still doing so much better than everything else. It has like 4 or 5, almost 6 babies coming out of it, and again, these are all coming out of where the leaves were once attached. You'll see some of the other ones in this footage, and really just the longer cuttings with more leaf holes are the ones producing a lot more babies. So I don't think it really matters how many leaves you leave on the stick. It's better off just to have a stick with no leaves because you have each one of those holes that has the potential to produce a baby. The babies are a little fragile on this, so they snap off pretty easily, but as soon as they snap off, you can honestly just plant them in some damp or wet potting soil and they'll root just fine. Since you saw how green and moldy looking that sphagnum moss is, I'm going to try and plant up some of the more successful ones, and let's see how well they can root and move on from the sphagnum moss with no roots to soil. Hopefully they can root in there well. Here are the ones that I potted just 7 days later. You can see they're still growing, and I bet they're probably rooting under the soil, and they're doing great. We are now at almost an entire 2 months since we first took the original cuttings, and here's where I just want to recap over everything and just show you the results so I can give you the exact best methods to go forward from. You might be able to notice it from the footage itself, but if you look at all these different cuttings that I placed in there, a lot of them have roots and everything, which is fine, but very few have babies. The only ones that actually do have a lot of babies are the longer segments of the stems. Now, the reason for that is because the babies have to come out of, I guess, the growth point, or maybe you could call it the node, but wherever there's a leaf coming out, that is going to be a new growth point for a baby. So if you just take a 2 to 3 inch chunk of the stem, remove all the leaves, you've just created a whole ton of different areas for the plant babies to come out of. Also, don't be alarmed if you snap the little babies off. Every time they've snapped off, I've just stuck them straight in soil, or if you want, you could put them in water and they will root up right away and become a brand new plant. Again, this is almost 2 months since cutting, and here is that stem. I mean, it has almost 6 babies on it. Everything's probably rooted pretty well because it's still growing in the soil and doing well. So I think this is honestly the best method. So, given everything we've learned from the past 2 experiments, now I'm going to show you exactly what I would do in order to revive or just propagate the heck out of your Pilea. Step 1, find yourself a dilapidated Pilea. Then step 2 is going to be just cut it off at the base. Do try and leave an inch or an inch and a half of the stump left in the soil pot because we're not going to be throwing this away. This will also produce babies. Now you should have a palm tree looking thing, and at this point we're actually going to chop the top off. Once you've got that top chopped off, then you're going to remove like 3 to 4 of the bottom leaves at the base of the top, if that makes sense, because those are where a lot of the roots are going to come out of, and it's just going to make it a lot easier for it to propagate. Then toss that cut end in some sphagnum moss or in a cup of water, and that thing will start rooting, and you can pot that up in a week or 2. As for the stem that's left behind, yours might have a lot more leaves left on it based on how and where you've cut it, so you're going to want to tear all the leaves off. You just want a bare stem. Then chop up your stems so you have about 3-inch pieces, and you're all set for that portion. Get those things thrown in some sphagnum moss, wait till they start sprouting babies, and then you can plant it in soil. As far as the plant that we just kind of decapitated, don't throw it out. Here are 3 of the cuttings that I've done in the past, and you can see tons of babies are growing on the stump. So once you chop it, it's gonna like kind of tell the plant to start growing new heads, so you'll get a lot of babies from this too. So don't give up on your old plant, because it will be a new bushy one soon. I think this is the best thing you can do with your Pilea, because you're gonna take the top, propagate that, have a whole new plant there. Your 3 stems are gonna produce tons of babies, and then your base plant is gonna also spit out a bunch of babies. So really, truly, it's a win-win, and you're gonna have 3 like attempts at getting a new plant from this. Well, that sums up this video. I hope you guys try this experiment. It's pretty risk-free as long as you know how to propagate, because the top part of the plant will usually propagate and grow roots, and you'll be fine with your original plant while giving you plenty of plant material to experiment and try and get more babies. Hope you guys try this, and I hope you have good luck with this. And as always, may your plants grow strong and healthy. I'll see you next time.